On va jouer à ce Stanley Parable. Enfin, on découvre. Wesh. Attends, il est quelle heure? 14h38. Mais du coup, je mets 14h38, non? Bah non, c'est écrit en âme. Mais attends, jour. Je vais écrire 39 au cas où. Deux PM. Splendide, vous avez vraiment rigolé là et pas seulement laissé sur... Ah, Nani? Et qu'est-ce qu'il me raconte? L'espace d'un instant, j'ai eu peur que vous preniez cette histoire au sérieux et vous allez prouver le contraire. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Bien évidemment, j'imagine qu'il n'y a aucun moyen de savoir si 2h39 est bien l'heure exacte. Autant que je sache, il pourrait vraiment être midi en ce moment même. Hmm. Je vais vous dire, nous allons utiliser un autre curseur pour tirer cette histoire au clair. Quel degré? C'est vrai, pas tout. J'ai l'impression d'apprendre plus que vous. Je pourrais inventer de nouveaux curseurs pour recueillir. Ça a rien compliqué, la flemme. Alors laisse-moi jouer au jeu. Stanley Parable de luxe. Stylé. Attends, on va voir les trophées. Donc attends, les trophées. Obtenez votre premier trophée, terminez le jeu, test trophée plaisir, heureux de vous revoir. Vous, vous ne pouvez pas sauter. Engagement, oui, tu. Cliquez 5 fois sur report. 330. Sprint, d'accord. Champion du monde de paramétrage va jouer dehors. Attendez, je regarde un truc.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley
Là, c'est une image du
was
jeu.
happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the trophy?
click a door 5 times? Is that all you think a trophy is worth? No,
Vous
no,
pouvez
no,
pas
no.
sauter. Ah.
I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now, suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to
Tips
his
pour...
boss's office, hoping he might
Tips pour
find
pas
an
être
answer
viré.
there.
Ah, il est pas notre... Bon, closet.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ouais, mais c'est en haut ou en bas? On va dire que c'est en haut. Bon. Les... Ouais. On peut vraiment l'avoir super bien. Attends, j'ai même pas vu c'était écrit quoi. Exclusive bathroom. Money in the morning, money in the everything, money in the breakfast, money, please.
Stepping in...
Je crois que j'ai fait un truc de mal. Ça s'est ouvert. Hein, ça s'est rouvert. Attendez, j'arrive. Et au cas où, ce qui s'est passé, c'est que ma manette, elle a bugué et ça m'a fait alors, bah, je vous jure, hein, c'est vrai. Bon, bah, mon père, il y est allé. Allez, bah, du coup, on reprend la partie. 412, 412, 413, 414. Ah, la porte là, elle s'est fermée. Ah non, y a pas 414. Bah, attendez. Oh. Ça, j'ai fait un... D'accord. Euh, you are now leaving. Escape to Bay, floor 760. D'accord. On peut prendre l'ascenseur. D'accord. Du coup, on est obligé de prendre l'escalier. Give une chose de connerie, travers. Une connerie. 756. On remplace le 7 par un 4. 456. Tout, tout, tout. C'est les vrais gars où on leur ref. 457, 457. 458. Non. Ah ben, je peux ouvrir. C'est The Stanley Parable. T'as entendu ce que j'ai dit? Ouais, escape. Ouais, je veux m'échapper. pas, j'ai fini The Stanley Parable en 3 minutes. The end is never, the end is never.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
D'accord.
simply missed a memo.
On va voir ce que ça fait
When
comme
Stanley
option.
came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Je ne t'écouterai pas cette fois.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Warning, do not jump from the cargo, life will cause dead. Penalty omission en cas de livre. Mais frère, on peut pas payer si on est mort.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been... But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good
Je
job,
vais aller avec
Stanley.
l'autre
Everyone
plateforme
thinks you
et
are
c'est
very
impossible.
powerful.
Mais quoi?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could
Mais
it
tu
mean?
vois, c'est juste ça le jeu.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
Ah ouais, de monter,
Coming to a
d'accord.
staircase,
Et pas
Stanley
de
walked
descendre.
upstairs to his boss's office.
Eh, pour pas que mon joystick bug.
Stepping into his
Eh, bah non,
manager's
t'as écrit.
office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any
Mais-
human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be?
8, 8,
In
8,
fact,
8, 8.
this
Attends, attends.
keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay
Quoi?
buried below his feet.
Vous avez obtenu le trophée 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8.
And so the
Voilà.
boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Je suppose qu'on est obligé, non? Mais frère, gros, je vais pas faire un 13 minutes de live. Quand même pas.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Il y a un autre truc en haut.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building. Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Attends, chambre de 456. Il est où? Ok, je trouvais. Oh, en fait, ça pue là. Mais attends, il a combien de caméras? 580. 600. Ah, t'as deux mecs qui se sont fait virer.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the control.
Je pense que j'ai fait un mauvais choix.
And a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Bref, on me flashbang, alors que je suis dans la journée encore. Terminer le jeu. Finissez Stanley Parable. Oh. Attendez, venez, j'essaie d'avoir le trophée speedrun. Sprint. Ok, c'est bon. Je sais comment faire. Allez. On sprint.
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was. Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
Ah, je pense que quand j'ai mis recommencer le jeu, c'est pas... voilà quoi. Un nouveau contenu.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Moi aussi.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure. Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go.
Ah, non,
All
c'est bon.
right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
C'est où le... Ah oui, c'est... du coup, c'est...
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if them... Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Gimme the content, Stanley. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
Oh! Tu peux jump! Ah non. En fait, en dehors du cercle, je peux pas jump, sinon là, je peux jump. What?
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
Bon, je pense qu'il y a forcément autre chose, parce que si c'est ça...
Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say...
Vous savez quoi, je vais faire la musique. Que vous connaissez très bien. Enfin, faire la musique. Je veux plutôt vous passer la musique. Bah, attends.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
J'avais vu dans le...
les jeunes. Vous passez vite et libère sa véritable puissance.
Oh, le perfect timing! Si. Bon, c'est one or perfect loop, mais mes frères, si j'avais mis le normal, on est bien d'accord, ce serait le perfect timing. Hein. Bah, du coup, en fait, je vais le repasser à chaque fois qu'il y aura un élévateur. Pour l'instant. Voilà.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley?
Là, ils ont fermé. Mais me dis pas, c'est juste ça, frère, non plus, j'ai sauté.
Rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's trophies, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test trophy, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such
Mais non, c'est pas ta faute,
expectations.
moi aussi je
If
voulais
you're
avoir
still
le
with
nouveau
me,
contenu,
why
mais
don't we just
c'est
reset the
depuis les
game?
développeurs, là, ils
And
l'ont
we'll
pas
try
mis.
to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Il fait quoi? Starf? Tout à fait.
Psst! Stanley! Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
D'accord, il y avait juste un ascenseur.
Okay,
D'accord.
you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive
Stanley
the peak
Parable
experiences of my
2013,
life
don't forget.
whenever I want.
Zone.
Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap PlayStation port? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Stanley Parable Demonstration.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content. Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. All they had to do was transport it in pristine condition along to the PlayStation, boom, done. And they couldn't even do that. Couldn't resist the urge to go meddling with a beloved franchise. These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no, oh God, no, Stanley. It's a collection of reviews from Pressurized Gas, the extremely popular online storefront for computer games. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they? Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny? I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Ça me fume carrément, t'as un panneau good qui arrive ici, il arrive dans la
Okay,
bonne.
let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always... What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to... Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary... Well, there's sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's... Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting... Oh... Hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through.
Et carrément, il n'y a même plus de narrateur.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth.
En fait, là, il n'y a juste plus rien, en fait.
The end is never the end, 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 is never...
Ah oui, carrément. Oh, merde. J'ai lancé un jeu comme un... con. Putain, il y a de la végétation. Bon, bah les coups de la végétation. Ah bah carrément, elle a disparu. Elle est devenue des cendres, comme on voit ici. Passe, passe, passe. Euh. Oh. Ah oui.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Bon bah, je pense qu'on va s'arrêter là, hein. C'était The Stanley Parable. J'espère que vous avez aimé. En tous les cas, c'était nickel. Et je vous laisse avec les comptes, avec les crédits.
let's try. So let's just say it was, yeah. Great. I know that you're the not me. It was like, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Well, right. You know, because I wanted to put him down to be a better boss. Basically, right. And you better smoke. Was that exactly the three of us? Yeah. Are you speaking? Does it work from like, does it still work? Do you feel support you if I go and the same thing? Or does it have to be good? You know what? Even if you were going to be sarcastic and ironic, I think you should still act as though it was personal in order to leave this kind of stuff. Right? Yeah. So let's just say it was. So let's try. So let's just say it was. Yeah. Great. I know that you're the not me. It was like, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Well, right. You know, because I wanted to put him down to be a better boss. Basically, right. And you better smoke. Was that example